Okay, so today, guys, we are back with a special edition of Punt or No Punt. Now, obviously, normally we'd have a contestant on the show. Today, we're going to be playing Punt or No Punt with the community. I've asked people on my Discord to submit hands over the last few weeks, and I've got quite a few together. We're going to go through them in a quick fire format. By the way, guys, if you haven't already joined my Discord, then please go ahead and do so. The link is in the description below. But the rules are the same, guys. We're going to be taking a look at each hand individually and deciding whether it's a punt or no punt. And at the end, we will have a winner. Either the community will come out on top, or the community is a bunch of punters. I know which one I am hoping for. This is also going to be a two-part series because we've got so many hands, and if I put them all into one episode, it's just going to take way too long. So make sure you tune in for part 2, which will be coming out a week after this episode. And obviously the stipulation is, guys, that I'm not allowed to have seen any of these hands before. Now, people have been sending them to me over the last couple of weeks, but I swear on my life I have not looked at any of these hands before. I'm going in completely dark, so this should be a lot of fun. Without further ado, let's go and take a look at the first hand. Now, as I've said, guys, there's a lot of hands to get through today, so if there's any decisions that are looking like close or anything, I'll probably just breeze past them. As you can see, we've got our scoreboard on the top left, we've got the name of the player and the stake in the top right. Obviously, we could use dollar amounts for that, but I'm really used to playing in big blinds, and moving between the stakes a lot is probably going to throw me. And also, obviously, the punt emote in the bottom left. So without further ado, we've got Brit Bad Boy, aka Commonly Spurs 51, for the first hand, and it is at 10-0. And we're in the small blind with 4-3 suited. This looks like a punt already. Obviously, guys, these are like, I've asked everyone to send one hand, so I'm expecting some absolute nonsense in here. So it folds around to Chris, and we just have a fold. Chris decides to 3-bet. This is absolute nonsense. Just no way, shape or form ever a 3-bet. This is one of the tightest positions we're going to be 3-betting. So we get a cold call from the big blind. I mean, especially if you do want to do this, I definitely think you want to make it a little bit bigger as well, being out of position when they call. Flop is deuce, 6, king. So we do have the old gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. Multi-way, you want to be super careful. This is one of the boards that we are allowed to bet, just because it's going to be pretty good for us in general, because we should be 3-betting pretty tight out of the small blind. Yeah, I mean, look, if we're going to 3-bet this, I guess we're going to have to just start doing some things and some stuff. If we are going to bet, we do want to bet small, I think. I think this is a size up is probably a mistake. You know, we're mainly going to get folds multi-way from stuff like pocket sevens anyway. You know, Bow 132 is someone behind him. Probably going to fold stuff like pocket tens at cold calls. To maybe even a smaller bet. I might be wrong. Exploitatively, this might be okay, but I think that we should not be in this situation full stop. It goes to under the gun, who decides to call. And now we have absolutely zero equity. So the problem is we are at the absolute, but I mean, we're talking about betting at the bottom of our range. This is not really supposed to be in our range, so it's hard to say what to do here, but if we're just 3-betting all of our 4-3 suiteds and then, you know, betting good boards for us and then just going with all of them, then obviously we're going to have way too many bluffs, right? Obviously we do have a bunch of King X, but our opponent can have a good amount of King X too. Do expect him to jam stuff like Ace King pre, but do I want to go with this? I mean, we have still got a gut shot, so I guess, but this guy did call, you know, pre-flop and then obviously on the flop as well. Obviously we unblock diamonds, so that's nice. I don't mind a second barrel here, but again, for a small sizing. I mean, I guess this is okay. I'll probably go slightly smaller, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I do think this is going to be enough to fold out some diamond hands. Our opponent goes to the call, and look, now we have 4 high. Like I said, I don't mind betting the turn, the flop. I don't mind betting. I'd rather go smaller. Once we get to this river with 4 high, I mean, what kind of hands can our opponent have that fold this river? I mean, I guess he can have stuff like Jack 10 or Queen 10 of diamonds. Maybe like 7-8 of diamonds that didn't jam the turn. Maybe like King Queen, he can even fold. Our line looks super strong at this point. The problem is the SPR is super low as well, so we may not get enough folds. I imagine we do go all in. And yeah, I mean, I always try to give my results before I see what happens in the hand, and without question, this is a punt. Purely because pre-flop is just so ridiculous that I just can't get on board with anything else that's happened in this hand. As played, I guess it's okay. We do have that gut shot, we do unblock the diamonds, and we do have 4 high, but it's just the pre-flop action just makes this a slam dunk punt. But we do get it through. So this was a good hand to kick off with, Chris. Thank you very much for submitting it. Absolutely awful pre-flop 3-bet. Please don't do this anymore. The community is down 1-0 going into hand number 2. Okay, with the community down 1-0, we're going into our second hand, which is by City Fade. And this is at 100 an L, so let's crack straight on. Opening up to 2.25, that looks pretty good to me. Button flat, which I imagine is probably fine at these stakes, a lot more so than at micros because the rake is lower. And we see 4-4 deuce. Now this board is going to be pretty good for us. Obviously the button can flat some 5-4, but we're going to be opening 5-4 at some frequency as well. Not 4-3, but we do have 5-4. He's going to have a lot of like pocket pairs and, you know, overcards that, you know, backdoor flush draws, stuff like that. So I don't mind going for a bet here. I don't even mind going bigger than this. But this is fine. Like I said, we're going to breeze through close decisions. We get raised, and I think we have a very clear float. Okay, well, I guess what City Fade is thinking here is that, I mean, look, float. The reason I said float is because we have, you know, ace queen, we've got the flush draw, backdoor flush draw, and we've got 2 overcards. We could still have the best hand. Our opponent could be getting a little bit frisky, but I think that I prefer call. But what City Fade is thinking here is that he just has a huge advantage in over pairs. Obviously, there's only like 2 combos of hands, or maybe like ace 4 suited that wants to flat the button as well, I guess. But we do block one of those combos, so it's pretty difficult for our opponent to have a good hand here. Our opponent goes for the float, and we see a jack of clubs. Now, I think we're starting to get into the realms of a little bit outlandish. City goes for another bet. Now, I guess what he's hoping for is to fold out stuff like pocket 8s or pocket 7s. I'd much rather use like ace queen of clubs here. I think versus our small sizing, the button's going to have some raises for sure with those medium pairs. So I don't mind it. We are going to get better hands to fold, but at the same time, it feels super unnecessary. I'd much rather have floated and then check the turn. But as played, we are betting and our opponent calls, and now we see a club. And yeah, I just don't feel like following through on this card at all. I think that our bet size on the turn would have got our opponent to fold stuff like pocket 5s through 10s. Pocket 5s through 9s. Even 10s is not going to fold now. Pocket 5s through 9s that may have called a flop 3-bet, but definitely would have had to well, I would imagine would have folded the turn most of the time because our line looks unbelievably strong. Our opponent can have the last ace 4. He can have 5-4 suited. Probably not pocket jacks, maybe pocket 10s. But I have seen people flat pocket jacks on the button before, so they can't actually rule it out. We don't have a club. Our opponent called a large turn bet. I definitely just want to give up here. So my decision for this one is going to be punt with the community going down 0-2. And let's see what happens. Yes, we do get looked up. And I think when we get looked up here, it's mostly going to be by, you know, maybe like king, queen of clubs or 5-4. I don't know, pocket 4s, deuces, something like that. Yeah, and so he does flat the jack. So if he ever does do that, then we're in serious trouble here. I think this is way too optimistic. Yeah, I'd just much rather have a club. I imagine we can have a club. But yeah, this is just a little bit frisky for me. On the flop, City Fade, we're going with punt, buddy. But thank you so much for the submission. Let's move on to hand number 3 with the community down 0-2. Okay, so in our third hand, we've got No Comply playing 10 and L with community down 0-2. Let's see if No Comply can bring it back for the boys. Looks like a clear 3-bet to me. Looks pretty good. Sizing is pretty good. We get a call, very standard. Opponent checks and 8-5 deuce. I don't know if Mr. No Comply is going to be 3-betting 8. Generally speaking, this board is going to be maybe a tiny bit better in terms of nut advantage for the hijack. But we're still going to be doing pretty well. Obviously, we have those over pairs, and with the backdoor spade draw and backdoor little backdoor wheel draw, I don't mind starting out with a bet here. And we get check raised. Yeah, I probably just want to go ahead and pitch this one. We're going to struggle on some turn cards. If we wanted our opponent to be bluffing here, we'd want him to have the ace of spades. You know, it's not like we get to make a flush on the turn. We're going to have to hit running spades, and you know, there's just quite a lot of turns that we're just going to have to fold. So I think I would just prefer to go ahead and fold this now. Sometimes also check back the flop. Now, this is one of the turns that we're going to obviously struggle to fold on. But for example, if the turn's just anything but this, then we're just going to be in an awful spot. And I just think it's better to just go ahead and fold it. But, you know, I could be wrong. I'm not an authority on these things, but that's just my general instinct in this situation. And then versus bet, I guess we have a decision between jam and call. I think I prefer call. I think when our opponent continues here, he's mainly going to have sets and completed flushes. I don't really think there's anything that our opponent would check raise the flop with at these stakes and then fold the turn. So like 6-7, would maybe raise the flop like 6-7 of diamonds, flush draws and sets. They're all probably fine betting the turn. So I don't think jam is really an option here. So we do go for the call. 5 on the river. And our opponent checks. Very interesting. So our opponent's basically telling us he has something like, I mean, a flush. I mean, the 5 is good in the sense that it blocks some sets. But our opponent can still have pocket 8s, still have flushes, even though we block, obviously, the nut flushes. I think mainly our opponent's going to be going for value, but he could be scared of the paired board. Something like 6 of diamonds as well. My point remains from the turn. I think that once our opponent check raises this flop at these stakes, they're just going to be pretty much weighted towards good hands, and the 4 of spades pretty much brings everything in, and I cannot imagine him folding like a straight. Obviously he won't fold a set or full house, and I don't think he's ever folding a flush either. So I think what we want to do here is give up. So on that note, we're going with punt for Mr. No Comply as well. This might be on the harsh side, but I think, you know, pre-flop's obviously fine. Flop, I'd rather probably fold to check raise or check behind. And yeah, like I said, there's just everything just gets there. And I just don't think our opponent's going to be folding very often. It'd be sad to get looked up here by jacks, but even that, which maybe could play this way, is still going to call a bunch. So yeah, we do get looked up by the pocket 10s. But yeah, do we really back our opponent to, like, we need him to fold stuff like 10s and jacks, really? And if he doesn't even fold those, which is pretty much like the worst thing he's going to be check raising here, even those hands, like on the 5 of hearts, are like, okay, I guess we have to call, kind of thing. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I definitely think we could have avoided losing a stack here. So we're going to go with another punt, guys. We're 0-3. Is somebody going to come to the rescue? Let's go and take a look. Okay, so in our 4th hand, we've got Jack at 25 and L, and we've got 10-9 of hearts in the big blind. Folds to the small blind, who makes a silly raise size. Too small for the small blind. We need some fold equity here. So yeah, I'm going to be assuming I'm going to be up against a weaker opponent here, and bear that in mind. Jack goes for the 3-bet, which I think is very reasonable, and our opponent goes to the call. Our opponent checks, and yeah, obviously this is going to be a pretty good board for us in general. I don't mind going for a 1 stab here, maybe stabbing some turns where we pick up some equity. So yeah, this seems fine. He calls. We did pick up some equity, but we don't have a diamond. I do think we're going to be checking back this turn like a little bit. So I mean, by that I mean we're going to be wanting to check back this turn a lot. Obviously stuff like ace queen, ace king especially is going to want to check back this turn. Can't really go for 3 streets. A lot of our hands can't. We may want to bet our sets and maybe our flushes, especially against a weaker opponent potentially. But yeah, I think I just prefer to give this one up. Jack goes for another bet. Now obviously we do have that 8. If it had been the 6 of diamonds, I definitely wouldn't want to see a bet. But I guess we do have some backup. We could be completely dead. And like I said, our opponent maybe looks weaker, and I do generally decide to slow down a bit against weaker opponents, not try to get them to fold. And obviously we block absolutely nothing. So our opponent goes for a call. 3 of clubs on the river, and it checks to us. Yeah, I just really don't want to try and get this guy to fold here, I don't think. I definitely think I'm nittier than most in these spots, but we have no diamond. Obviously we have 10 high, so it's awful. Feels awful, sorry, to check behind, but my decision for punt will be based on the fact that we don't have a diamond, that I probably would just maybe check the turn. It just feels a little bit like we have loads of better hands to do this with, specifically 1 diamond hands. If we're going to do this with 1 diamond hands, and then all of these hands, like 10-9 of spades, like Queen 10 of spades, King 10 of spades. I assume we're going to be doing the same thing because, you know, we have no showdown with those either. It just becomes that we're bluffing way too often. So I very much admire the heart and commitment, Jack, but this is never this is going to be a punt from me as well. We're going 0-4, guys. I mean, I'm glad that everyone's submitting some real stinkers. But our opponent calls, which is not overly surprising, and he does have a set. Now I'd expect our opponent to probably check raise versus our sizing with a set on the flop, but yeah, the problem is our opponent has some pretty good hands when he calls twice. We don't really have any significant blockers. I'd much rather just go with a strong diamond. So yeah, not my favorite bluff. We're going 0-4, guys, and let's move to hand number 5. So guys, with the community down 0-4, we had to bring in a hero to save the day. None other than Mark, Weasel 1991, surely to get something on the board for the community. Weasel's opening the small blind, the cutoff, which is totally fine. We get 3-bet, and I think this is a fine call. Not all the time, probably, but definitely a good portion of the time. 6-3-5, and our opponent checks. And obviously this board is going to be like pretty good for us. I don't think small blind is going to have sets here. We have obviously a lot of sets. I think he's going to be checking like quite a bit here, or should be checking quite a bit here. So I definitely think that we should be aggressive here. We obviously have that backdoor spade draw. We've got the open end straight draw, and also we have 8 high. So I definitely like a bet, and I like Mark's sizing here. Our opponent goes for a call. Deuce on the turn, and I think we want to be aggressive. We do have, I wonder if we bet pocket fours. We do have like ace 4 of hearts, ace 4 of spades for sure. So and obviously still 8 high and that up and down straight draws. So definitely happy to bet again. Mark does go for a bet, which I like. And our opponent calls again. Now our opponent's probably going to be very overpair heavy at this point. It's very, very difficult for our opponent to have good hands here, which is like really strong hands, nutted hands, which is why our opponent, which is why I like our opponent's line of check check. But yeah, this is the kind of hand that we're going to need to do some blasting with. Oof, this river is awful. Our opponent checks, and now we have a decision, right? So this is a toss up. Obviously, we don't have a heart, but it's very, very tough for us to have a single heart here. What kind of hands would we have bet flop and turn with that have just one heart in them? Maybe something. I mean, and also we had to defend it pre-flop, right? So maybe something like, I don't know what Mark's defending range here is in the cutoff versus small blind, but something like ace queen off. But then I think he's probably going to do a bunch of 4-betting with that. So I'm not really sure that it's super possible for us to have like one heart hands. Obviously, we'd love to have a heart, but it's really tough to have just one heart here. I'm not really sure what kind of one heart hands we're going to have. So if we don't have one heart hands, which obviously are our best bluffs, then what we're going to need is some other bluffs. Now 7-8 high seems to me to make a bunch of sense. Obviously we can never win, we show down, and there's really no perfect bluffs here. Like I said, we still have 3 6s and 5s. The problem with the deuce of hearts is that our opponent's just going to have like overpairs, specifically ones with hearts that don't really want to fold this river. But it's not like the river is like a terrible river for us for what we're representing. We still do have a bunch of flushes. We still do have all of our full houses. So I think that I like a follow through here. So we're going to go, I imagine Mark's all in. We're going to go with no punt. Mark, bring one back for the community. Just purely because I don't see how we can have a single heart, which means I don't really see how we can have better, like really, really good bluffs here. Because obviously we want to have a nice heart here, but we don't really have any. We get called, which is unfortunate, and I imagine our opponent had an overpair with a heart. Oh, we just had a nut flush. So yeah, on a non-heart river, obviously this is why it would be nice to have like ace queen off with a heart, because then our opponent is less likely to have a hand like this that can call us. But yeah, I think this is just about okay. Unlucky, mate. I think that your play is reasonable, and we're going to put a score on the board for the community, and we're going 1-4 down into hand number 6. Hand number 6, guys, we're back at 10-0 with Slumz, and We are in the small blind with King Jack. I don't like anything but a 3-bet or fold here, but 3-bet is good. I like the sizing. Our opponent calls, which is fine. 9-9 queen. We're going to have some decent amount of queen X here. We're obviously going to have kings and aces. We're going to have ace queen. We're going to have like 10-9 and 9-8. But our opponent's going to have a bunch of 9x as well. And probably more than us, because he will always defend like 9-8 suited, and I don't think we should always 3-bet that. So it's not like the best board in the world, but I don't mind a continuation bet. And I wouldn't mind going slightly bigger here. But as I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on bet sizing stuff because we have loads of hands, guys. So yeah, don't mind a slightly bigger bet, but yeah, we do have that gut shot and the overcard. There are some turns that are going to be okay for us, but I am concerned about our opponent having some pretty good hands here. I don't expect to see many folds, but we are going to get some from like the small pairs that don't really want to float here, that have really poor visibility on turns and rivers. I think now my preference would be to give up. Obviously the board now does block 9-8. There's only one 9-8 left, but at the same time, our opponent's still going to have Jack 10, although we do block that. He's still going to have 10-9 suited. He's still going to have stuff like Ace Queen, Queen Jack. We do block some of these things, especially like King Queen, Queen Jack, Jack 10. So our hand has some okay properties. So I don't particularly hate a barrel, but I think my preference is to give up, which it looks like is what we're doing. And our opponent checks behind. 4 on the river, and yeah, now I think like our hand has those, given that it has those properties that we were talking about, that it blocks some stuff. Our opponent checked back, so I don't think he's going to have stuff like Jack 10 anymore. King Queen's a possibility, like I said, we blocked that. Queen Jack for sure could have checked back. So yeah, I think we're going to have to go for a bluff here. I remember our opponent only called a small bet on the flop. In terms of sizing, he only called a small bet, so he can have stuff like ace high, you know, like ace 10 of spades or something that can fold. So we definitely don't want to lose to that. So I definitely like a bet. In terms of our sizing, we just want to think about what we're going to be value betting here, right? I think that it depends whether we want to check like kings and aces and ace queen on the turn, and I don't know if we definitely do. But like most of our very strong hands are going to want to bet. We do have stuff like queens, obviously pocket 9s, pocket 8s probably, but we might consider checking flop. 9-8 we could check obviously as well. Jack 10 we're probably not going to check. What's like the worst hand I want to bet for value here? Probably want to bet like king queen after checking the turn. I think checking the turn with king queen is pretty reasonable. So I don't mind having like just like a 2/3 here, something like that. Oh no, Slumz. Oh, Slumz. So we go for a check and our opponent bets. So yeah, interesting spot. So obviously it looks like if Slumz has submitted this, he's going to be going for the rest of the money here, hoping for a fold clearly. Now it's just a matter of whether we think our opponent would have checked back the turn with like super strong hands that will half pot this river and then call a shove. Does our line look weak enough that our opponent's trying to get us to pay him off with like pocket 10s or something? Maybe with like queen jack he could be betting. Ace queen, will that fold? Would our opponent ever check back something like 10-9 on the turn? I don't think so. I think what I'm getting at here is I don't actually mind this. We do block Jack 10, but I don't think that matters anymore because I think he'll always bet the turn. I think that our opponent's mainly going to be like having some Queen X here. Now the problem that I have is do we really get to this river with any good hands? Probably something like pocket queens, pocket 9s, and 9-8. Do we really not want to bet the river? I think we're probably just going to bet ourselves. I'm very concerned that we don't have enough value with this line, and it looks like kind of like what we're trying to do, which is get our opponent to fold. This one is super close. I think this, on the whole, just feels incredibly unnecessary, and I imagine we do go for it. We don't even go for the rest. I think this is a super interesting hand, Mr. Slumz. I think if we're gonna raise, I think we just want to go all in, like. And the reason being is for the reasons I've already spoken about, when we're checking here twice, it's mainly going to be with hands that absolutely dominate the board, like pocket nines and pocket queens and 9-8 maybe. I still think those are going to find bets, but you're never ever going to check like ace queen or kings on this river ever, or aces. So it's not like we can like raise small for value because we're never ever getting here with those hands. So I think mainly we're just going to want to go all in. But I really don't think I like this sizing, and I think this feels very unnecessary. Also, our opponent's getting like a much better price now if he did have something like queen jack or ace queen. Our opponent goes all in, which which honestly is kind of surprising to me. But yeah, obviously he's not bluffing anymore, and we just have to fold. Very, very interesting line from Mr. Slumz. I'm very concerned about what he's going to be doing this for value. We've got to think about what the kind of hands that we're going to have when we do check turn and river, and I just don't think that this. I think this was way too ambitious, and I don't like the river sizing. So we are going to go with punt. I knew this was going to happen at some point. I was going to play through the action, but I think people can see that I was leaning on towards the size of punt. But this hand, going in dark to these hands is very difficult trying to piece them all together because I'm not a complete robot, guys. I'm just trying to do my best, and obviously this is for a bit of fun anyway. So hope you guys don't mind if I get a little bit lost along the way. But this is going to be a punt, guys. We're down 1-5, but a very interesting hand, and yeah, just would have preferred all in on the river, but still think I would have gone with punt. Let's go into the next hand. So in the next hand, we've got a community favorite. It's Nikki, and we are looking at the 9-7 of diamonds. Oh, come on, Nikki, don't do it. Well, I hate a call. 3-bet is just probably way too aggressive. We're going to have like, 7-8 and 7-6 that we can 3-bet. The suited gapper, I think, is just way too aggressive. And if we're going to 3-bet Nikki, I think we want to make this 12. This isn't really putting any pressure on the button. The button just gets a really good price to continue with its whole range. So I think if we're going to 3-bet here, we definitely want to be sizing up. But my preference would definitely be to fold. Our opponent calls, which is not surprising. And we've got some backdoor stuff going on here. Our opponent, he's going to call very wide pre-flop, like I said. So they're going to have a bunch of like nothing hands here, like queen 10 of hearts that can fold. And obviously if we get folds from like queen 10 of hearts and we have 9 high, that seems pretty good. I like a c-bet here. We're obviously going to have some really good hands. We've got jacks, we've got all the overpairs. Ace jack suited. Our opponent does have those as well, and he also has 4s and 3s, which is a concern. Obviously he will never be folding those to our sizing, probably won't fold to a large sizing anyway, but I can definitely get on board with a bet. I don't really see, I think if it was like jack of hearts 4-3 of spades, then I definitely think we should just go ahead and give up. But with the backdoor equity, I think I'm fine with the bet, and I'd probably go ahead and just size up a little bit, but this is fine. Our opponent calls and we pick up some equity, so I definitely want to barrel again. I would have preferred the 8 of diamonds, but, what can you do? We do unblock spades, which is nice, so we can get some folds from stuff like maybe king, queen of spades by the river. But we have to understand that when we go with this hand on the turn, we're going to be following through on pretty much every non-spade river because we can go for value with like queens plus, pocket jacks, stuff like that. I much would have preferred 22 on the turn. Nikki, I don't know what you're up to there, but we'll accept your sizing as it is. Yeah, I think we can go, maybe this looks actually pretty good. Yeah, I'm totally fine with the sizing, but obviously we would have preferred 22. Queen on the river. Now, we've got to think about what is the worst hand we're going to value bet here. And what sizing do we want to use? So I don't know if aces and kings are worth a shove anymore. Our opponent can have like queen jack suited. So yeah, I'm not sure. Versus our little sizing on the turn as well, our opponent's going to have like pocket 8s and stuff. Queen jack, pocket 3s and 4s are probably going to not do anything differently at any point. So our opponent's doing super well. What hands do we have? We have obviously jacks, which is definitely worth a shove. Pocket 8s probably, which is definitely worth a shove. Pocket queens, obviously. I don't know if we want to definitely shove that, but we probably just want to go ahead and shove that. Aces and kings, I think we're getting on the side of a little bit too thin, but we definitely want to value bet. So I definitely think that having 2 sizes here seems to make sense. Also, maybe something like ace queen of spades we want to go. So maybe we want to have like a small sizing and an all-in. Obviously, like blocking with 9-7 of diamonds just feels a bit stupid, but yeah, in reality, I don't think we want to be like talking about mixing bet sizes or anything. I think we just want to generate the most fold equity possible. So I prefer all in, but I think in theory, maybe want to mix between like a small and a large size here, but I'm probably on a massive tangent. So we have 9 high and we unblock spades and our line looks super strong. We do represent some very good strong value hands. We've got 8s, jacks and queens. We just have to be careful that we might not be wanting to jam those over pairs here because it does seem a little bit thin, but maybe we can. I'm not sure what we get called by when we jam aces here though. So yeah, I like a block size and an all-in, and this makes sense to feature in the all-in sizes for the reasons I've said. Our opponent finds the call, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But like I said, guys, I was talking about this. So what this again, I did it where I forgot to give a result before. Obviously, we're going to get called because this is punt or no punt, right? But I don't like the 3-bet pre and I don't like the sizing. But apart from that, I don't particularly mind it. And it is Nikki. So we're going to go with no punt. Although pre-flop, Chris might have something to say about this because his play was based on a pre-flop punt. But yeah, this is borderline. I really like the heart of commitment. We do have some very good hands here. I do think we're going to get some folds from like Queen 10 of spades and maybe King Queen of spades will fold. We are representing some very strong hands. I am a little bit concerned that if we start doing this with everything, as long as we only take like our backdoor diamond draws, I think we can give up stuff like 9-7 of spades because we're going to be blocking some of our opponent's folds with like 8-7 of spades and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't mind the combo selection once we're here. I'm going to go with no punt because I don't want to discourage you from making this kind of play. I can see why your red line is good, but yeah, we're gonna go with no punt, and we do get called, and our opponent has the old king queen, and I think we're unlucky here to get called. Our opponent's pre-flop play is good. His flop play is maybe barely passable. His turn call is absolutely disgusting. It's so bad. And obviously, if we know anything about this guy and we know how sticky he is, we can never, ever, ever bluff this river. But at the same time, if he's floating absolute air, we're going to get a bunch of folds. But I do think our opponent has like lots of single pair hands by this river. So definitely mark this guy and never bluff again. But we're going to go with no punt. So we're 2-5, guys, and let's move into the next hand. So moving into our 8th hand here, we've got upbeat poker. And we're playing some 25 and L. And we're opening up under the gun with the 8s, which looks pretty good. And opponent flats the button. Ooh, King 10 Queen, all diamonds. Now, obviously, this board is going to be pretty damn good for us. Our opponent's going to flat like a bunch of small pairs on the flop. Oh, sorry, pre-flop. And then like lots of suited combos, maybe like Jack 10 of hearts and stuff. We may be able to get folds on future streets from those hands, and also we're just going to get some folds from those smaller pairs, but we don't really need much protection from those anyway. We're going to be going for either a very small bet or a check here. I don't mind going a little bit smaller than this, but this seems fine. Our opponent raises. I don't really know what he's going to be doing this with. It's really hard to say. Like, he could have just like flatted, you know, ace jack or something from the button. I think our best course of action is just to probably, I mean, calling seems okay and folding seems okay too. Calling puts us in some really tough turn spots, but let's have a look. We check the turn and our opponent bets small. I think any size bigger than this, we're definitely going to fold. I still think I prefer fold. I think we're just entering a situation which is just seems pretty unnecessary. Yeah, I think I probably would prefer to fold this turn. We do call, and the river is a king, and we check again, and our opponent bets 24. So I imagine we aren't going to call. Our opponent raised the flop and bet twice. So he would definitely check back something like Queen 10, which is a possible hand that he could have had. We need our opponent to fold something like Ace Jack here. He can also have like King Queen that flats the button. There's still 2 combos left of King Queen. Yes, we are going to block some flushes like 9-8 of diamonds that our opponent maybe could have flatted the button with. But like, I think most of the time we're going to get looked up here if we decide to get frisky. This whole hand just feels pretty unnecessary to me. So we do go for the raise. Yeah, I think our opponent, once he flats the button, I mean, he's either doing this with like pocket sixes as a bluff, which we beat anyway. I'm not saying that we can really call, but we're thinking about the kind of hands that our opponent flats the button with, like that can value bet here, like ace jack, king queen, king 10. I mean, maybe deuces that bet that raise the flop, but that seems unlikely. He's just going to check back queen 10. I think our opponent just has like some really good hands here, and this feels unnecessary. I think even his bluffs, that if he's going to bluff, it's going to be like pocket fives. So maybe we can call if you really don't believe him. I think once you raise, you're just going to get him to fold all of those small ones, small pairs. He's not doing this like jack 10 of hearts. I think this has got to be a punt, unfortunately, mate. So yeah, I'm going to go with punt for those reasons. And our opponent does look us up. Yeah, like ace jack or king queen, king 10. I guess mainly after we get called and rather than jammed. He's obviously not going to have king queen. Definitely not king 10 anymore. Maybe pocket 10s, which can't really get called by worse anymore. And then I mainly expect to lose to like ace jack here. It would be hilarious if we got like owned by like queen jack though. That would be really funny. And he just has the nut flush. So yeah, I mean, obviously like small. Well, like we can flat the button reasonably, not in like high rake structures, but you can flat the button reasonably with like suited aces. And there are a bunch of ranges that advocate that. I personally don't because the rake's too high, I think. But yeah, I definitely think that when our opponent's bluffing here, we actually just win. And then yeah, I think this is just definitely a punt for me, buddy. But thanks very much for the submission. We're down 2-6 now, guys. Let's go on to the next hand. Okay, so with the community down 2-6, we have got a hand from Roxz at 200NL. Now, Roxz is an admin on my Discord, one of the sickest players I've ever had the fortune of coming into contact with. Has some incredible analysis in the Discord. If you want to check it out, then remember, Discord link is in the description below. Let's see if this is a good advert for that or not. We're in the big blind with 9-7 offsuit, and I imagine we can defend this. This seems okay. I think if he goes to 3 big blinds in the button, then we will probably just fold. But depending on the dynamic, I think Roxz said that he didn't really have anything on the opponent, so we might well be going in dark here. Defending doesn't seem too bad. Oh god, we're going for the check. We do have the 9 of spades, and our opponent bets. Well, I expect our opponent to either check or go small here. He is obviously going to have, advantage at the top end of the board. He may well struggle versus check raise and aggression with some king X hands, maybe even some 2 pairs. So I don't mind mixing this one in. We do block, quite a few flushes that the button will open. Obviously, the 9 of spades will be in quite a lot of his flush combos when he's opening from the button, because the buttons are obviously a wide open. We call, which I think is probably best. Don't mind a check raise, but I think we're getting a little bit spicy. We turn a flush and we check, and our opponent bets, and I think we just have a very easy call. Seems good. The river's a queen, and I imagine that we... Okay, I was about to say I imagine that we check. Now, I can't wait to hear why he's done this, because anything that I say is not going to be anywhere near as useful as what he says. But let's just try and figure this one out. Oh god, I knew someone was going to stump me, and I'm not surprised that it's him. So obviously on the flop, we call with our 9 of spades. It seems good. He can have stuff like ace king that wants to bet for protection that we can then beat on the turn. So wow. When we make our flush on the turn, obviously we're in check call mode, and when our opponent bets though, and we call, he's pretty much not like representing anything but rule like flushes. And from what I understand, the best combos to use as bluffs are going to be like 2 pairs or sets, because they can make full houses. But we're getting into some pretty complicated territory there. So I don't know if I like leading on a card where our opponent potentially could be using stuff like, I don't know, Queen 8. I'm not sure. again, guys, getting into, I heard Ginge talk about this one time on his stream, so since then I've sort of had it in the back of my mind. But that's one concern I have. The other concern is that this just is absolutely wild. What are we actually saying that we have here? We definitely don't want to do this with the nut flush. We probably would have check raised the nut flush before anyway. So we're basically saying we have a boat. Now, what boats do we have? Queen 8, we definitely defend the big blind. Don't know if we defend offsuit combos. Pocket 8s, I imagine that we'll be 3-betting at some frequency. Pocket 3s we won't have because we won't have a spade, and we won't float the flop without a spade. So King Queen, we will sometimes 3-bet, but often call. And I don't think that we want to do anything but go call and then call again with King Queen. So I think what we're saying here is that we have King Queen, and our opponent would probably, I don't know, that thought process I was talking about earlier, where your 2 pairs make sense as your bluffs on 4 flush boards. You know, I don't know if our opponent will definitely be doing stuff like that, because it seems counterintuitive. We want to try and show our hand down kind of thing. But once we call the turn, it's like, I'm not really sure. Like, I believe that Roxz is saying he has King Queen here, and he does have King Queen offsuit. So, and I imagine we're trying to get our opponent to fold the ace of spades. So when our opponent bets twice, he quite often will have something like the ace of spades. It's a very underbluffed board. I'm not sure if it's underbluffed at 200 an L. But I'm getting myself in a little bit of a muddle here, guys. But what I'm trying to say is that our opponent looks like he has a flush, and we can have King Queen a whole bunch, because I don't think we're ever going to check raise that, and we definitely do have it pre-flop, flop, and turn. Obviously, because you have those boat outs on the turn. So, yeah, we're basically saying we have either Queen 8. I don't think we have Pocket 8. So I think we'll probably check raise that, but I don't think we'll check raise King Queen, and I don't think we'll check raise Queen 8. They seem too loose. So I actually think we do have a bunch of boats here. Punt or no punt. I mean, it just seems unbelievably unnecessary. But will our opponent? If I'm on the button here, I'm just sitting here thinking, oh well, my opponent has a full house, and he just knows that I have the nut flush, like a bunch here. And he just thinks I can't. Well, and he just knows that I'm going to be able to not fold very often. But what do you do here with the nut flush, right? What do you actually do here with the nut flush? I imagine Roxz has a very good idea of what his range looks like here when he calls twice. Some small flushes that probably can't win at showdown anymore. And then, I mean, sometimes they will, but when he bets the turn, like we've talked about, does he really show down very well here? Probably not. I mean, this is just not a situation that I've ever found myself in before, or ever seen before. So it's so hard to make a decision, and I can't wait to talk to him about this hand. What I'm gonna say is, hopefully he'll put something in the comments for you guys to read. But my thought process is that he's gonna have a bunch of Queen 8, King Queen, and yeah, I think you're gonna get a lot of folds here from like the Jack, or probably the Ace of Spades. Because our opponent, like I said before, can have some 2-pair hands that want to bet the turn that will have boats. So it's not like the Ace of Spades is his very best hand and he's folding everything if he does fold. Wow, what a hand. I have no idea what to say about this river bet. I'm going to go with no punt because I absolutely love the idea of it. But and because we can definitely have, a bunch of full houses. What I do like about it is, we have to, when we have King Queen, I imagine he's going to do this, and Queen 8 is going to imagine he's going to do this. So we have to have some hands that want to call the turn, like small flushes, because we can't call the turn with like, Queen 10, or like, we can't really even call the turn with like King 10 without a spade. So we don't ever get to the river without either boats or flushes. So we have to turn our flushes into a bluff. That's what I really like about this, that Roxz understands that he's going to have to find bluffs, and when he calls flop and turn, he's really going to have to use his flushes. And his worst flushes seem like the best ones. Unbelievably mind-bendingly fuckery of a hand. I have no clue what to think. I'm going to go with no punt because I think it's super, super interesting. I'm so glad that this has been brought into my life. But yeah, no punt, Roxz, but can't wait to hear from you about this hand. We're 3 and 6 moving into the last hand of this portion of the video. Let's go and take a look. Okay, guys, it's our last hand of this part of the Community Punt or No Punt edition, and we are at 5-0 for our last hand with the community down 3-6, and I just want to see if my brain still works after trying to piece that last one together. And Aroma's in the big blind here with 5-6 offsuit. I think we're just going to want to fold this. I don't really want to defend, but there is one thing to say about this hand, and that is it is against another member of the Discord, so I don't mind a fuck you call against Sin Smile here. And I also don't mind a fuck you 3-bet against Sin Smile. I'd like to make it bigger, but yeah, I mean, this is going to be a purely dynamic hand where these guys, I think, will know each other, and because they both play in the same pool quite a lot, and they're both in the Discord. So if we're going to 3-bet 5-6 offsuit, then we better be damn sure to go ahead and continue on this board. Really, really good for us. Our opponent shouldn't have like that much 4x. Unfortunately, we don't block any 4x with our 5-6, but that's, you know, what can you do? But yeah, we have all the overpairs. We do have some ace-4, some 5-4. So, and I like sizing up here. I prefer a bigger size here. We're just doing a good job of smashing this board. Our opponent's going to struggle against multiple barrels. Unfortunately, we do have like 5-6, which is, we do have the gut shot, but we're going to block some stuff that we might get to fold on later streets, like 5s and 6s. But I do like to size up here if we're going to bet. 5 on the turn, we do block pocket 5s, and now 5-4 is only one combo left, so I'm loving this. It's just a matter of whether our hand now becomes a check. So we have a couple of options here. Once Sin Smile calls, he's going to have some like medium strength overpairs, probably no traps, I would imagine, in this dynamic, again with like aces or stuff, but who knows. I imagine he'll just pure 4-bet those, because obviously if someone thinks they're after you, then you're going to want to put your strongest hand in your 4-bet range, right? So this card, whilst we are now going to beat some diamond stuff, right? It's just a matter of whether we now want to turn our well, we were bluffing, now keep bluffing with a 5, or whether we want to try and show this down. My preference is to try and show this down now that we have a 5. We decide to barrel. Now, what we're basically saying is we're trying to get our opponent to fold like pocket 8s and pocket 9s that float the flop, but because we bet so small, he can also fold stuff like Jack 10 of diamonds here, and we're also getting protection and some value against those hands as well. So this is kind of like a mergy, weird bet, and this dynamic is going to be super interesting for the river. We get a call and the 7 of clubs on the river. So 7's interesting because it doesn't... The problem with the dynamic that we have here is that the 7 doesn't produce a scare card for like 8s, 9s, and 10s, which Sin Smile's going to have all the time. He's also going to have pocket 7s, which is now going to boat up. We do block pocket 5s, which is nice. Obviously, our opponent's going to fold like diamonds and stuff, and we beat those anyway. So once we do bet the turn and our opponent calls, we have to decide whether we can get him to fold 8s and 9s in this dynamic, and I really, really doubt it. I really, really doubt it. This is just a wild hand. I mean, I'm talking about this hand in the context of a dynamic. If there was no dynamic, this is just pure puntery, and I'm going to be hard pressed to find another outcome for this one, regardless. We decide to check, which I think would have been. For some reason, I had in my head that Aroma was going to jam river, and I definitely do prefer check. It's just that I imagined that he was going to try and get him to fold like 10s and 9s, which I think would have definitely been a mistake. It's just a matter of now whether Sin Smile will turn diamonds into a bluff, which is like kind of dicey, obviously, because he's going to want us to have diamonds. Whether he'll just give those up, or whether he will value jam stuff like pocket 9s and pocket 10s, right? I think that they are worth a jam in this dynamic. I think that I can't imagine Aroma not jamming the river here with like queens plus and stuff. It's really hard to say. I don't know how many times they've played against each other. I don't know what kind of hands they have against each other. So I imagine that 10s is worth a jam here in the dynamic, but I'm not sure. He goes all in. Well, I mean, Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we obviously block pocket fives, which is nice. We have to really decide whether Sin Smile is going to jam 8s, 9s, 10s here. If he is, I think we have to fold. If not, I think our blockers to the fives, and I mean, pocket fours, pocket deuce is obviously there, fours is obviously there, but unlikely. Sevens is there. We have a good blocker to the pocket fives. Like, it really all comes down to whether he's jamming 8s, 9s, and 10s, and I honestly don't know the dynamic well enough to say. I'm just going to go with punt because it's super safe, because we've 3-bet 5-6 offsuit pre-flop, which is complete nonsense, and I cannot, in all seriousness, do anything other than give this a punt. I don't mind flop. I'd like to go bigger. I don't mind the turn. I don't mind also a check, but we are going to get some protection. But I just think that, unfortunately, our opponent's going to have like some middle pairs like a little bit too often. I think Sin Smile's going to turn up with his pocket sevens a lot, but and maybe pocket tens. If he does jam tens, like I said, I think it's just pure punt. But yeah, we're going to go with punt because we have 5-6 offsuit and we 3-bet the big blind. So there we go. We call and we get shown pocket sevens, which is, yeah, it's pretty much what I expected. Would Sin Smile have called a jam if on the river he had pocket eights? I mean, we're getting into super weird territory, but yeah, at the end of the day, guys, we had 5-6 offsuit and we just shouldn't be 3-betting. We just shouldn't be 3-betting. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go with, guys. So that's going to do it for part 1 of the community edition of Punt or No Punt. I do like to have the end screen of the punter having their money pushed towards the other side of the table, as you guys know, and we have the score in the top left, which is 7-3 to punt. Moving into next week is going to have to be some serious ground made up by the community to bring this one back. And if today's episode is going to anything to go by, that's never going to happen. But for now, guys, that's going to do it. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like and a comment on the video, it would really help me out. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week for part 2.